if you can. Hello everyone, welcome to episode number 1 of the Mental Support Show. My name is Tommy Gentleman, I'm the host of the Mental Support Show, and today in episode number 1, my guest is Mr. RYAN HARTLEY, and we're very excited about today because in this episode we are going to be talking about men's mental health. But before we go and explain exactly what that means to you, the viewer, Ryan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, mate?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be episode 1. RYAN HARTLEY, leadership and mindset coach, and just love helping people be always better than yesterday.
Always better than yesterday is a great philosophy, because anyone watching this now, if you are going through something right now, or you know someone, particularly a man, because obviously we're talking about men's mental health today, who's struggling right now, then know that whatever we're going to share today should be able to help. We are going to come at this from a place of love, exactly on your hoodie there, a place where we really care about the health, the well-being of every single person. And that's why in this episode we may at some points talk about stuff that's a bit controversial. So I guess it's a bit of a warning, I'm not sure. This episode will contain talking points and real life experiences that are sensitive, emotional, possibly trigger a few people if if you're not ready for it. So I guess we're putting it out there. This is about men's mental health, and I guess one of the biggest challenges that we're faced with is, being brutally honest, too many young men or men of all ages are ultimately taking their own life, ultimately ending things because they're struggling in one way or another. And so there needs to be, and this is one of the reasons for actually making this show in the first place, there needs to be more content out there on this thing that we call bad, social media, the internet, part of the problem perhaps, but it can also be part of the solution. And so putting out content, putting this show out there is a way of hopefully penetrating through the noise to actually extend a reach and help someone somewhere. So thanks for watching this. Hopefully we can add value, and do share the show if you feel like it's worth sharing and may help some people that you know. We have to be able to talk about it as men, which if you are a man watching this, then you'll know that there's this thing about talking about it, right? Sure. Yeah. Addiction is a massive problem, and it can be what's happening in the pursuit of finding an answer. In the absence of pleasure, or the absence of excitement, or in the sort of misery of the grey clouds of day-to-day boring stuff, somebody, whether it's a man or a woman, can look for another way to release that hit of dopamine, that success, that feedback. And one of the things that people, especially men, can get addicted to is alcohol, drugs, sex, social media, gambling. These are all things that release the same feeling of achievement or pleasure, but the consequences are often very negative. Consequences negative to people around them, consequences negative to their own health, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So what we're going to do now is actually find out a first-hand account of someone who's been brave enough to share their story of addiction and how they've come back from being addicted to drugs. So let's hear from them now. Let's cut to the video.
Hi, Tommy. So I just wanted to share with you a bit of my story. My life was a bit of a struggle. I found things very hard, and drugs was my go-to. When you're in a very dark hole that I found myself in, I could be in society and feel like everybody was against me. I could sit there at a family meal, feel like people were talking about me. I could be out with my friends playing football, I'd be the last one to get picked because I didn't think I was good enough, and I'd always try and separate myself. And throughout my life I did the same thing, and it was over and over and over again. So when I found drugs, I really fitted in. It did for me what I couldn't do for myself. It allowed me to be more confident. It allowed me to talk to people. And on top of that, it gave me the best feeling in the world, But what it did is it stole from me. It stole my peace of mind. It stole my parents' peace of mind. And it really dragged me down to the lowest of the low. I was in my mate's living room on a pull-out bed in the sofa. I was using an eighth to a quarter of cocaine a night, and you know, I didn't have anything. You know, I'd lost my job, I'd lost everything around me, all the external stuff was falling away, and that internal feeling of crippling, it was just, I was dying inside. I was alive, but I was dead, if that makes sense. My two youngest children went into foster care. That gave me sort of free rein, and I didn't really care at that point. I've tried cheating and lying drugs tests, and it doesn't work. I got caught out, I failed those as well. You know, I've contemplated the suicidal thoughts have been there. I've contemplated, you know, running away, geographicals, changing locations, you know, all this stuff. Like, it doesn't work. You know, the problem lied in here. And until I could fix the internal stuff, I wasn't able to have the external. I made a change. I joined a fellowship, 12-step fellowship. I followed a 12-step program. And you know what? My life slowly started to get better. I started to feel better. I started to believe in myself. I found a way of living that allowed me to live. You know, allowed me to be who I was supposed to be before I found all this stuff, before I found drink and drugs to change me, the person I was meant to be growing up. And that's where I'm at today. You know, I find myself very lucky today. I'm a full-time dad to those two youngest boys that were in foster care. You know, I'm coming up 3 years clean and sober. I don't touch drink, I don't touch drugs. Total abstinence is my only solution. I'm relying on something greater than me to pull me through tough times. You know, the program is designed for living in rough going. It works. And, you know, if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't be here today. I'm lucky to be sat here, being able to do this for you, to say to other people that are out there that, you know, mental health is real, drug addiction is real, and there is help out there. I always had that negative input, that negative thought on things, and today it's completely different. You know, I'm a personal trainer, I'm a full-time dad, I have a stepson, I have a loving partner, you know, and I've got a beautiful life today as a direct result of doing something with my life and actually thinking in a different way, going to ask for help.
Hey, it's so great that you're watching this episode of the Mental Support Show. Make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel for future episodes, and remember, the more we learn, the easier it gets. Okay, welcome back. So we've just heard there from Mike, what a brave thing to do, and I'm sure that you'll agree watching that there that he's shown true courage, true bravery to come back and also to talk about it and to make it his thing that he's helping other people with now in a sort of roundabout way. So well done, my friend, and thank you for sharing. Ryan, you've seen a lot of things. You mentioned earlier that your background is in the police. I mean, for as much as you're willing to share here on this platform, with knowing that we're not here to beat around the bush, you know, how bad does it get? What does it really look like when you see the result of how bad things can get?
Well, it's tough because in one of my roles as a volunteer police officer, I went to the house of someone that taken an overdose, and that person had been there for a good week.
Right.
And you know, just to walk into that space where they've lived, and to see someone there that's lifeless, it doesn't leave you, and it makes me wonder what was going on in that person's life.
Yeah.
What was going on that it got so bad? Where was their support network? That's the worst it gets.
Yeah.
You know, when someone makes that decision that their life is no longer worth living. Within my own family, we've unfortunately my sister's partner took her own life too, and she was, you know, mid-20s at that time, and so suicide is real.
Yeah.
It's happening far too often, and I think the video, you know, like your good friend has shared, you know, more people need to be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because the more people know what's going on, it's silent. You know, with the conversations in our head, we have to be able to talk about it, because in talking about it comes two things. One is the ability for others to help, and two is some form of acceptance that we need help.
Yeah. I think I don't know how accurate this is, to you and the viewer. But I think at some point everybody has a thought. You know, I certainly have a couple of times. And as a man, I think part of it, and we'll hear from Fidel, who works with men every day, helping them with their mental health and has a community of people that he helps. He actually says this as well in the interview, which we're going to see in a second. But it's almost like with men, because we're problem solvers, first and foremost, when we see ourselves as part of a problem that is worse if we're here than versus if we're not, that's when it can become extremely dangerous. And I don't know about you, but you were nodding just then, maybe in agreement that you've had thoughts as well, and that it's okay to have a thought because it's just a thought, as long as you're able to make sense of it. And if you need to talk about it, talk about it. Certainly for me, when I had those thoughts, it was, well, it would be bad for people, me not being here. Like, I'm not pretending that no one would care, but maybe they'd understand that pain more, and maybe that pain would be more controllable than the pain I could cause by being here in a random, sporadic way. Do you know what I mean?
The worst thing is we think we're being rational when we're being completely irrational, you know. And I think the thing that I've really had to learn, particularly being a parent as well, is that the time when these thoughts just drop in, we think they mean something, where in reality we get thoughts of all spectrum of emotion at any time. And I think the thing we need to be really mindful of is that they don't mean anything. They just simply come and they simply go. And it takes time to learn that it doesn't mean anything. Those aren't the truth. But we try and make sense of it. We try to think, oh, why am I having this thought? Maybe people would be better off if I wasn't here. Or maybe I've got no reason to keep going. And I think the one thing I've really learned from my good friend Adam Boker in Australia, who's just written his first book, which is about powering up after experiencing depression, shout out, he actually said, sometimes when you are experiencing that depression, there's something within you that stops you reaching out. There's something within you. So if that's you and you're watching and you're going through that, find a way, whether you just stick an emoji or reach out to Tommy in his inbox. Just summon the courage right now. If you need that right now, then just do that, because it can be difficult for people. Take the first step.
Ryan and I, and whoever I have here, do not always have all the answers, but there will always be some kind of solution. So yes, absolutely. Comment, reach out, go join the group, go and ask for help, go and just give the emoji just to say that you're here and you register this advice, this conversation, because it can make a lot of difference. So we're about to cut now to an interview that I did earlier in the week with Fidel Beauhill. He is an expert in helping men, particularly with their mental health. He's got some really interesting views and opinions based on experience, and this is going to be really great. If you're someone who's struggling right now or know someone, then listen very carefully. Hey, buddy. How's it going?
Yeah, all good, man. All good. Normal. How many times do you hear, I cannot believe he did it? I saw him yesterday. I saw him last week. He had a massive smile on his face. He looked like he was doing all right. How many times do you hear that about somebody who's committed suicide? That's the story. For the majority of guys, it's really bloody difficult. Confused that there's this massive issue with men's mental health. Actually, men and women, and it's mainly based on a 2012 bit of research that highlighted the fact that men's suicide rates are so much higher than women's. But the attempted rate is pretty similar. Men aren't suffering from mental health any more than women are. We commit suicide, we die by suicide more because we're better at it. It's as simple as that. We choose more violent methods. We're more focused. We're more we're task focused, and we want to complete the job when we decide to do it. Women attempt suicide just as much, but they tend to worry a lot more about the people that they're leaving behind. They tend to use less violent methods. They take pills, alcohol, stuff like that, slash their wrists. Things that give them a chance, and it's more as a cry for help. When a guy decides it's time to commit suicide, he just goes and jumps off a bridge and hangs himself, or blows himself up or something like that. Most guys, when they make that decision, it's about, I'm causing more harm than good by being here. Yeah. If I take myself out of the equation, it's that same thing. It's that masculinity. It's that sacrifice.
Yeah, problem solving.
Problem solved. I'm going to take myself out of the equation. Everybody else will be better off without me, right? I'm going to sacrifice myself for the good of my little tribe. which is that classic masculine mentality. So we have to try and tap into that and try and make men feel needed, make sure that they know that they're appreciated, make sure that they know that they're needed, and that life without them is not going to be better. Yeah, that's about it. It's tough. It's tough, man, to try and nip this in the bud, which is why we have to start looking further back. I think if we're going to reduce the suicide rate, we have to start looking further back, and we have to start teaching guys how to maintain what I'm going to call mental fitness. And if we do that, less guys are going to get to that end point, I hope, because it's bad, man. We got to stop it for sure.
So pretty powerful stuff and very, very punctual. I think that there's a lot of stuff there, and we'll share the extended interview as well. There's stuff that we had to cut out simply because of time. But the point is, there are people out there helping. There is a massive importance over this topic, and men should not be afraid to be men.
It's really important to be able to just communicate needs. Mm-hmm. And if you're a woman watching this video and you've got a husband or a partner, it's okay that you allow your husband or your partner to express their needs, because it's a real vulnerable thing to be able to do, is express what you need and have that used against you. It's like, I'm going, here you go, have my samurai sword. Yeah. And with it, you can either chop my head off with it, or you can, put down the tools and share space and understand. And I think the more in which we as men can communicate what we need, in a way that isn't, well, I'm doing it. Yeah. Because sometimes we can fear conflict and we go, well, I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah. If I can say, look, it really helped you, I'm just going to couple of hours and I'll come back as soon as I can. I won't, we compromise, because that's what a good team does,
Exactly. And I guess if you're the man and you've not really taken that approach before, then don't expect it to just be like a Hollywood movie where they open up and just go, of course, honey, you do your thing. Like, I'll be here waiting with dinner when you come home. You go and be a man. It might get thrown in your face the first time, but that means you've got to do a better job at articulating it. Or maybe you need to do it more often because you're not helping them to understand. Don't react and be like, well, I tried. That's cowardly, that's weak, and these are all the things that as a man you're not. And you can step up and do that in a more effective way. It's probably like that due to the lack of your communication in the first place. So you don't expect to win that first, I say win that. Don't expect to be good at it the first time round.
And this is kind of linked to generational as well, because
it is.
My dad would go and play rugby most weekends, and I'd be stood on the side of the pitch. So that was my quality time with him.
Yep.
And then the same thing would have happened for him. The generational hand down of the man plays sport on a Saturday, and that's just the done thing. Yeah. Well, I think the changing nature of what it means to be a present dad these days means that we are balancing many different responsibilities, and it can be a bit more challenging.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's why we need to be even better at communicating and learn. Absolutely. Okay, so now we have another video, another story of someone sending in their experiences firsthand. Have a watch of this.
Hey Tommy, so I promised you a video about my journey with anxiety and depression 10 years ago. Found out my mum had cancer. Was told that I was about to have a child with a girl that I'd been with, and probably was been suffering from anxiety and depression for a while, but just had been kind of putting it at bay with more smoking marijuana, kind of just as like a shut off at the end of the day, not really processing my thoughts, all those kind of things that I now do, and fell into a really big deep hole. Ended up moving back in my mum, to help her with some cancer, but also kind of needed that support. She did everything she could for me, but I used to wake up every morning not wanting to get out of bed. I literally got out of bed to go to work, come home, get back into bed. Lost my appetite for everything: food, exercise, hanging out with mates. Giving up my dream of coming to Australia at that point, thinking I was going to have a child, and I was obviously going to support that child and be there for that child. And then went to see my doctor, and they prescribed me some medication, and I didn't really want to be on it, so I asked them what was the one thing I could do to obviously get better without having to take medication, and she always knew I'd been into my exercise, so she said, exercise, like start exercising. So joined a gym. Wasn't really my thing, but got me out of bed every morning, gave me some sort of motivation. Didn't realise how great a tool it was back then, but I do now. That kept me slightly afloat, kept me going, got me up in the morning, motivated me, got my brain going, out of that flight or flight mode that I used to stay in bed for, and more into that kind of energised, get ready for your day, get shit done. Obviously it wasn't perfect. About 2 years later, I found out the child wasn't mine. Also, my mum came into remission from the cancer, so started chasing that dream of Australia again. As you can see, that dream came true. I moved over here. I was in hospitality, got sponsored, got my permanent residency last year, saw a therapist whilst I first got here to learn a bit more about cognitive behavioural therapy, how to control my thoughts. Took me a good 2-3 years to really fully get out of the depression and the mood swings and the anxiety. And I thought, what's helped me in my life and what am I passionate about? So what I ended up doing is, what I realised is that depression actually has given me my newfound passion and purpose. So it's been a bit of a big circle. From my depression and my anxiety and learning all the tools that I learned, I wanted to give back. So having been quite active and a sport person, I did my Cert 3 in fitness. Started working. I've only been in the industry for 3 months, and with my management experience I managed to pick up a head coach role at a gym, which has been fantastic. I now live in Australia, as you can see. This is my home. I still battle my anxiety, like I said, every day, but journaling, processing, having open conversations, really I believe does help. So that's my story. The circle of depression for me was something that was a massive deep hole probably 10 years ago for me, and then has led me to my new career, which I'm absolutely loving. Couldn't have asked for anything else. I'm now living in the country that I've always wanted to live in, living my best life at the moment. Always welcome to talk to people like yourself and help spread the word and the journeys that we've all been through to help others. So yeah, hope this helps. Thanks, buddy.
We're all in it together, and that's not just about men. We're all in it together as human beings, and this show is designed to help. Another thing which I think is really easily said, raise awareness and break the stigma. What does that actually mean? Well, it means exactly this. It means putting out content, not being afraid of what people might say against it, because we know it to be true. We know it to be important. You've shared some really important first-hand experiences here today, so thank you. If you found this show helpful, this episode, please do subscribe to it. Please do share it. Pass on the awareness. That's how you raise awareness. You know, I'm doing this because I care about it, so are you. Neither of us are here for commercial reasons. We're here because we care about it. So share it, and that's your way of caring about it too. One of the real philosophical reasons for starting the show was, I believe, because I'm able to facilitate this conversation. I have the skills to be able to talk to you, and to be able to make this happen. I have the resource, I have the room, I have everything that I need to do this. Yes, the heart. Whereas other people might not, who care about it equally or more. I'm part of the solution now because I'm making this conversation happen. So be part of the solution as best you can. Like it, share it, pass it on, because somebody else might really need to hear this and watch this today.
Yeah, you're a man of practical solutions, so mine. There is one person in your network. There is one person in your network. Take the time to really think about who that is that needs to hear this, see this, feel this, because that's part of raising awareness. The pragmatic action. Think of that one person that they're on your mind right now as you listen to me say it. Share it with them now.
Your brain is here. Two things that have always been the case since the dawn of time that will have the power and the potential to literally change your life are these things. One, new information going into that brain of yours. This is new information, but whatever happens next needs to be a continued journey of seeking new information, because when that new information goes into your brain, that becomes potential. The thing that makes it really change your life is when that potential is then used in a creative way. That information needs to be applied. Some call it implemented. I call it creation. So here's what you need. Practical solution. You need on this side a book. with words in that aren't yours. New information. New information. On the other side, you need an empty book that you write in. A notepad. Something where you can make sense of what this information means to you. That is the start of your warrior journey, because you're out there on the battlefield. You're experiencing things, and it's all inside here. You need to go and learn what other people have experienced and what they might be able to teach you, and then make sense of it. All the greatest warriors, I'm actually 28% Japanese. I'm a quarter Japanese. My grandmother was from Japan. She was Japanese. The samurai weren't just great fighters, but they were artists, because they would express themselves. I mean, they would do some crazy stuff and see some things, right? But they would express themselves in between battles to make sense of how they felt. So we can do that. Every one of us can do that. All you need is a book, and we'll put some recommendations on, and an empty one to go and write down what you think about the stuff that you read.
You've been through some things, some heartache in your life, and you talk about connecting with your inner warrior.
Yeah.
Talk me through that process. What happened? What really helped you?
To connect with my inner warrior?
Yeah.
I think the moment when you realise you are on your own in this, which a lot of people is the last thing that they think before they do something else. For me, it was like, oh shit, I'm only ever going to be me. And that means that it's up to me what happens. What do I want to happen? Well, I'd like to live a great life and leave a legacy. So I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that that happens. And the only reason I felt that is because I felt the opposite of how quickly life can be taken away. So in other words, I used my pain and I used my fear and my challenge to realise, to wake up to just how important life really is and how great life is. And don't get me wrong, that's a process that does take time to heal. And for those people that maybe have read the book, watched the TEDx talk, or know who I am already, you'll know what I'm talking about here. For the new audience, my younger brother passed away suddenly 5 days before his 14th birthday. And it was just me and him, growing up. And I took that as I had a 50% chance of dying, because it was just him and I, and it was a heart problem that nobody knew he had. And I'm like, well, he's the closest thing to me. There's only two of us. And I was like, I'm gonna have to do what I think he would do. And this was, I never shared this, not in the book, not in anything. I was like, what would he say if I died? And I imagined myself being like a ghost. And he's there and he's feeling it, he's devastated. And I'm like, well, what would I say to him? And I would say, right, I'm a ghost now, this sucks, but you're not. You're alive. So you better live for both of us now. You better do more. You better do all the things that you were going to do and fucking do more, because I can't do it and I was going to do some shit. So you better do everything and more. And that's why every second counts. That's why you've got to always improve and always learn and always grow and always extend love to other people and always just be the best that you can be. Create things, creation, because I can't. And I flipped that round and I was like, I'm going to do that. And as I'm saying this, I'm also thinking why I haven't spoken about this before. I've recorded hours and hours of videos and obviously TEDx talk and the book and stuff. And I think it's because these things happened in my mind within like a week or two. I went through a patch of like not really wanting to do anything. And I remember, mate, when Jamie passed away, it was bizarre, special. Like, kids were outside our house with daffodils in their hands, like sat on the curb, just sat there, and we'd look out the window and we'd be like, the kids are here again, the kids from school. And we just open the door and be like, come in, and they'd just sit there. They wouldn't say anything. They were 13. And we would sit there. And actually, I know it to be true that it brought out this another level of me. It brought out the best in me, because I can remember 2 or 3 occasions where nobody knew what to say. And like in my garden, I think because it was springtime and they were there with the daffodils and everything, and kids in a big circle in my garden. We also had family friends of my mum and dad in the garden, and everybody was just quiet, and I just stood up and said, look, I think it was probably something like, in a very, very naive kind of youthful way, because I was only 19, I think I was 20 actually, I was 20. Like, you know, he's not here, but we are, and what we do next is what matters the most, because I like to believe that he would see that, and he would know that, and he would smile upon that. And I can remember lying down like in my garden, and like a white feather would fall down and land on me. And that was a big thing for me. It was like, there is a listening voice here. There is an energy that I can't see or touch or hear, but something, because a white feather was extremely relevant to me. And I can remember at the school, the day after, they called an emergency assembly. They had all the kids there, and they were sat like in the bleachers. I think we call them chairs maybe, but you know what I mean? Like, they were sat, you know, in this auditorium, and I went to that school, and the head teacher was like, Tommy, can you say something? And I was just like, well, yeah, I can. And I stood up in front of everybody in the school that I went to, that I was sat down only 5 years before, you know, falling asleep when everyone else was stood where I was talking. And I'm just looking at these kids, and I'm just like, look, we can do this, you know, and because that happened so quick, I don't really talk about that anymore, because I made quick sense of it, and then went on to try and bring in, I guess, more of a structured way that I could share with somebody else, because that's a very, very personal thing to do, I think. So I've managed to change that into, hey, if you're doing this, then try this, which is obviously why I produce so much content.
Yeah, I think you know, you'd obviously had your time in New Zealand and had already worked a lot on yourself and your mindset and your own growth, and it's inspiring the way that you've taken that pain and living with this sense of purpose and legacy. And there'll be others that you know, in all the interviews I've ever done with people, like, you know, there are times in our lives where we either use it to drive us forward or hold us back. And you know, I'm a big brother too, you know, and I can only imagine your position. And have you, you know, men's mental health, have you ever felt burdened by being the one that's survived and the one that is to carry on that mantra and that legacy?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and it was only recently, maybe the last year and a half, that thought even came into my head, and I know that this would crush my parents hearing this. And Mum, Dad, I don't believe this to be true. This is just, but again, this is evidence of sharing our thoughts and being okay with that. You know, I'd be like, shit, would he have done better? Am I causing these people I love stress when actually, you know, maybe he wouldn't have done? And do they think a certain thing about me, and because they're parents and they're thinking things? But I know that all of that is just the thought, like we discussed earlier. It's just a crazy, but it's an irrational thought that doesn't make weight. It's just there. We have to be able to accept that we can think like that. It's okay to be able to think like that. It doesn't make us wrong or broken to think weird things, but just don't let them become heavy. Like, brush them out and bring the rational back in. Go and talk to someone and realize how much they care about you, realize how much they love you, look in their eyes and make that the real thing, make that the weight that exists, whereas the rest is just breeze, it's just wind. And also, I think that whenever we have something happen, which we would change in an instant, like I would change that, of course, but I can't. I think it's also important, no matter how weak or strong you feel, to make sure you fully take in the reality of the situation. I can remember the exact moment where I had the fucking break, like the real break, where I was like, holy shit, this is not a dream, this is real, this is actually life now. And it was about 90 seconds where I was stood in the funeral home. You know, I've never talked about this, but this is important. We've taken this very seriously. And I was there with my parents, I think, first, and one of my lifelong friends had came to pay respects and to see him for the last time. And my parents left, and there's a long corridor, and they walked down the corridor. My friend then had to come back down the corridor, but for about 90 seconds, it was me and him in the room, you know, on our own.
Yeah.
And that was, if I could like take a bird's eye sort of snapshot of that, that was it for me. That was like the scene that was like, life's never going to be the same again. But even talking about it now, it's not like devastating me. I mean, I'm emotional, but I'm also thinking that was my moment in my warrior story. Like, I can't change it. I would. Don't get me wrong. You might think, like, why are you talking about it like that? Because I can't change it. So I will change what the story means to me. The story means to me this. This is your life now, mate. Like, you can do it. This is it. Like, look at it. Look at that. That's the fucking reality. So step up or concede.
Yeah, I've had some tough times in my life, and I found that whilst there's a network of people that come around you, there's a lot of people that love you that will tell you how you should feel.
Yeah.
And you know, you shouldn't be worried about it. You shouldn't feel this. You must have had a lot of people come around you at that time, and you know, do you relate to that? Was there a lot of people telling you how you should feel? How did you find the right people to confide in?
It's a really good, really, really, really great question. You have to go with your gut. Who do you want to be around? Like, who? Doesn't matter who they are. I can remember people that I was hanging out with I don't see now. That's fine, because at that time in our lives we needed to spend that time together, and I had people that were there that are still there now, but I didn't spend time with them because it's just whatever you feel needs to be the right thing to do. I swear that like is the way. And as a supportive person, you've got to be okay with that too. You've got to be able to go, they don't want to see me right now, they want to see that person who they don't even really know that well. That's okay, because it might be that those two souls are supposed to be together in that moment to help the healing. People showed up that I never thought would show up, and people who I thought would show up didn't. And I think that did change me. I struggle when I'm struggling because I don't like it when people tell me what I should and shouldn't do. And for some people that's just ego protecting them. I genuinely believe for me it's because I've seen and felt more that I'm like, thank you, but I kind of know myself.
Which is
like,
why you're brave enough to say you're challenged to the it's okay to not be okay.
I'm big time challenging that, because that's just wasted words.
Did you know there's more?
Yeah, there is more. It really gets me because, like, you say to somebody says they're struggling, or even you see it in their eyes. Hey, don't worry, because it's okay not to be okay. Oh, good. Hang on, I still fucking feel shit. But it's okay, is it? Okay. Well, other people feel it too. Okay. I still feel like shit. Then something happens, it's like, no, I really do still feel like shit. Though. This is my reality, this is what I feel every day. I don't fucking care if it's okay or not. This is really shit. And then the next thing. So it's like false hope. At best, it's a catalyst for this conversation to happen. At worst, it's false hope. Patronising, I think. And I think we need to challenge it. It's from a good place, don't get me wrong. But everything's about evolution. Even a statement is about evolution. Like, what's stage 2? If we were there and we were like, hey, look, there's a global crisis here on mental health. What we need right now is just like a door to just slightly open. What can we do? We could go, hey man, you're better than this, get over it. Nah. We could go, hey buddy, your life can be great again. No, it's too strong. What about it's okay not to be okay? Yeah. Great for phase 1. Great for phase 1. The door's open now. We now need to grab the handle and we need to pull it open and we need to say, come on, let's go. And that's what the next thing is. And I think, maybe we'll regret this or not. I don't know, but
let's go.
I think let's go, because either it's going to be extremely culturally relevant now, or it's going to be culturally relevant in 2, 3, 5 years. When it is, these words will hit home and help people.
Great.
I believe that.
Good man.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining me here on the Mental Support Show, episode 1,
Thanks for having me,
Men's Mental Health. I really appreciate you asking me a couple of questions there as well. You mentioned sort of off air that was the bit that you thought was missing from the episode as you went along, which is one of the reasons why you're here for episode 1. You knock out these episodes for your podcast all the time. You understand what's important for the viewer to hear and understand. And if there was something there that wasn't said, then it should come out. So I really respect and appreciate that you've allowed that to happen and really set the tone for this series. What would be your last words to share today?
First and foremost, thank you for having me, my friend. I always admire people like yourself trying to make a good difference in the world to help other people, and I think the world needs more people like you. My last piece of advice, really, just as I'm speaking, is to know that it is not selfish to put yourself first. Your sheer existence and the people around you depend on it. Connecting with yourself, connecting with who you are and who you are at your best. It's not selfish. It's quite frankly needed, because a better you is a better you for the people all around you.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. Thanks for being here, Ryan.
Thank you, mate.
We'll see you again soon. So there we have it, episode number 1 of the Mental Support Show. Please do make sure that you subscribe to this channel for future videos and leave a comment to let us know how you found this episode. Thanks very much. We'll see you in episode number 2.